Hello. About 2 days ago, I was walking up the steps of the Capitol when Representative Yoho suddenly turned a corner, and he was accompanied by Representative Roger Williams, and accosted me on the steps right here in front of our nation's Capitol. I walked back outside, and there were reporters in front of the Capitol. And in front of the reporters, Representative Yoho called me, and I quote, a fucking bitch. These were the words that Representative Yoho levied against a congresswoman, the congresswoman that not only represents New York's 14th congressional district, but every congresswoman and every woman in this country. Because all of us have had to go through this in some way, some shape, some form at some point in our lives. This is not new, and that is the problem. Mr. Yoho was not alone. He was walking shoulder to shoulder with Representative Roger Williams. And that's when we start to see that this is not an issue of one incident, it is cultural. It is a culture of a lack of impunity, of accepting of violence and violent language towards women, and an entire structure of power that supports that. Because not only have I been spoken to disrespectfully, particularly by members of the Republican Party and elected officials in the Republican Party, not just here, but the President of the United States last year told me to go home to another country with the implication that I don't even belong in America. So while I was not deeply hurt or offended by the little comments that were made, when I was reflecting on this, I honestly thought I was just going to pack it up and go home. It's just another day, right? But then, yesterday, Representative Yoho decided to come to the floor of the House of Representatives and make excuses for his behavior, and that I could not allow. I could not allow my nieces, I could not allow the little girls I go home to, and I could not allow victims of verbal abuse and worse to see that. To see those excuses and to see our Congress accept it as legitimate and accept it as an apology and accept silence as a form of acceptance. I could not allow that to stand, which is why I'm rising here today to raise this point of personal privilege. I do not need Mr. Yoho to apologize to me. Clearly, he does not want to. Clearly, when given the opportunity, he will not. And I will not stay up late at night waiting for an apology from a man who has no remorse over calling women and using abusive language towards women. But what I do have an issue with is using women, our wives and daughters, as shields and excuses for poor behavior. Mr. Yoho mentioned that he has a wife and 2 daughters. I am 2 years younger than Mr. Yoho's youngest daughter. I am someone's daughter too. My father, thankfully, is not alive to see how Mr. Yoho treated his daughter. My mother got to see Mr. Yoho's disrespect towards me on the floor of this house on television. And I am here because I have to show my parents that I am their daughter and that they did not raise me to accept abuse from men. Now, what I am here to say is that the harm Mr. Yoho tried to levy against me was not just an incident directed towards me. But when you do that to any woman, what Mr. Yoho did was give permission to other men to do that to his daughters. In using that language in front of the press, he gave permission for people to do that to his wife, his daughters, women in his community. And I am here to stand up and say that that is not acceptable. And so what I believe is that having a daughter does not make a man decent. Having a wife does not make a man decent. Treating people with dignity and respect makes a decent man. And when a decent man messes up, as we all are bound to do, he tries his best and he does apologize. Not to save face, not to win a vote, He apologizes genuinely to repair and acknowledge the harm done so we all can move on. I want to thank my colleagues for joining us today.